I'm sure that all you guys out there do the same thing that I do when a big fight is coming up. You will make a prediction a few weeks beforehand, and maybe you do this, maybe you don't. But this is inspired, this video, this series actually, by Sean Strickland's win over Israel Adesanya at UFC 293 this past weekend. Like most people, when the fight was announced, I thought Israel Adesanya will be a huge favourite and he will win this pretty comfortably.
Oh, this that.
And then the closer it gets, you start to watch maybe predictions, things like that, breakdowns, start to think about the fight a bit more, maybe watch the countdown show, things like that, interviews, and start to, at least I do this anyway, put together an argument in my head of how Sean Strickland can win the fight, as if playing devil's advocate to myself, to my own opinions. And sometimes I am able to I spend so much time thinking about these things that I can convince myself that that it will actually happen and change my prediction. And sometimes it's just an interesting way to look at a fight and you know, take things into account as a whole. And that is what we're going to be doing today with this weekend's main event, the UFC Flyweight World Championship rematch between Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko. Because I'm going to be totally upfront with this. If you asked me to give a prediction of the fight, my reason, my pick would be Valentina Shevchenko to win back her title. And my reasoning would be she was winning their first fight until she made a silly mistake in going for a spinning back kick when Grasso was too close to her. It was clearly something Grasso had drilled. She took the back, choked her out. And that was it. That was the end of the fight. But I think that would be the common opinion of most people, because everyone knows how good Valentina Shevchenko is. And so for that reason, the whole point of this video is to talk about Alexa Grasso. And this isn't an in-depth breakdown of the fight. This isn't stats and things like that. This is the internal conversation that I will no doubt have with myself this week of why Alexa Grasso can win despite being the underdog. I assume she is an underdog on paper. I think in most people's eyes she is the underdog, at least. And so let's talk about that and give a quite biased opinion, because I'm going to say some things that, yeah, you could probably counter if you were trying to argue for why Shevchenko can win this fight, but that is not the point of this video. This video is to play devil's advocate and talk about how Alexa Grasso can win. First things first, let's talk about the thing she had the most success with in their first meeting, which is the striking. I think that most people, if they were going to predict Alexa Grasso to win this fight, it would be the success that she had on the feet in the first fight with her boxing. Valentina Shevchenko is a very, very good striker. I don't think anyone debates that. And if you give her the time and the space to set things up, we all know how that goes. Her kicks in particular are fantastic. I know that her kicks, in a way, cost her that the fight against Grasso. I would argue it was, you know, it was more her decision making and her trouble controlling the range. And I think that led to a little bit of panic and confusion at the same time, which led to the kick when she didn't have enough space to throw it. Alexa Grasso's boxing looked fantastic in that fight. If you were going to point out a potential flaw in Shevchenko's striking up to that point, I would say it probably is boxing. But people have such a difficult job closing her down because her kicks are so good, her footwork is so good, she's so fast, and also you get close and then you're in her grappling, and her clinch work and takedowns from the clinch are some of the best aspects of her game, which is no kind of revelation. Everybody knows that already. We've seen it happen many times, and we kind of saw it happen in the Grasso fight. She definitely won the second and third rounds in their first meeting with her grappling, although we'll get to that in a minute. The way that Grasso kept the distance between them was fantastic. If she is going to win, if I was making an argument for her winning, that is the crux of the whole thing, is being offensive with her boxing, keeping Shevchenko guessing, and controlling the range, because she can't get too close to where she's going to get taken down, and she can't keep it in a kickboxing match. I think she needs to be in her face and pressuring her like she did last time, which forced the mistake out of Shevchenko. The other point to that is something she proved in the first fight, which that her grappling defense is fantastic. I know she got taken down and she got controlled for the majority of the second and third rounds, but she showed incredible awareness to not get herself into too many terrible positions. Shevchenko is so good at getting that crucifix, and she was so close to getting it, and Grasso was able to deny it. I don't know if we've ever seen anyone do that once it's that close already. She showed so many just smarts that people struggle with against Shevchenko. People panic. She's so fast in those transitions. And Grasso just seems so well prepared for it, and that isn't something completely unique to the Shevchenko fight. I think she has proven that in a few of her fights in the past, especially since moving up to the flyweight division where she is unbeaten. But I think that's a solid argument for if you were going to say why Grasso can win this fight. If she does get taken down, she's proven that she can stay safe, and of course Shevchenko will make adjustments, but so will Grasso. Finally, the final point that I would make for Grasso is the mentality. And I think this is maybe the biggest point. If you were going to say, how did Alexa Grasso pull that submission off in their first fight? I think you could point to the mystique around Shevchenko being less prominent than ever off the back of her Tyler Santos fight. I remember when Jennifer Maia won a round against Shevchenko, and it was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then Shevchenko went on to dominate the rest of the fight, and it wasn't that close. But solid argument for Tyler Santos winning that fight, and also was it the eye poke? I believe it was the eye poke that was the big decision, controversial thing. So the Santos fight, after the Santos fight, a lot of people weren't so high on Shevchenko anymore. But of course, the public opinion doesn't come into it too much because she was still a big favourite. I think where that invulnerability comes into it is that Alexa Grasso thought she might make a mistake here, and they clearly drilled, if you find yourself, getting Shevchenko's back, this is what you do. And because she executed it so fast, as soon as she found herself there, it was like jump, choke, done. It was a beautiful submission. And that is where I think the most interesting part of this fight is, because I do think, again, I'm not here to argue why Shevchenko will win, because she is the favourite. People already know why she's going to win, or why she has a bigger chance of winning, I should say. And that is because she hasn't looked the same in her last couple of fights, and losing the title will probably bring that back out of her, the Shevchenko that we know as a dominant champion. However, you also have to think what kind of confidence boost that is for Alexa Grasso submitting Valentina Shevchenko. Of course, it could have the opposite effect. It could cause her to lose a little bit of focus, a little bit that hunger that saw her become a UFC champion. But I think in the case of someone fighting a former dominant champion, it would add a little bit, if anything, because she was the one that beat Valentina Shevchenko when nobody else could, and when for a while nobody thought anyone would. And Grasso was able to do that. Of course, it being on Mexican Independence Day as well, she's going to get a ton of support out there, and I think that helps as well. Is there anything else about Alexa Grasso that I think can help her win this fight? And if I was making an argument to somebody that I would bring up, she's incredibly tough. She's incredibly durable. We've seen that she has excellent patience, not only in her grappling defense, but then in staying in the fight and taking that opportunity when it came to her. I think that Grasso legitimately, of course I'm playing devil's advocate, so I'm going to argue why they can win the fight anyway, but I do think Grasso has a really good chance of staying safe on the ground when she does get taken down, and when it stays standing, I think we are going to see a better Valentina Shevchenko on the feet, but will it be good enough to counter the things that Grasso did brilliantly in their first fight? That is Devil's Advocate, episode 1, all about Alexa Grasso and the UFC flyweight title fight this weekend. Make sure you check out all the other stuff that we've got going on the channel at the moment. Hit subscribe, and we'll have another episode of Devil's Advocate coming up soon. Let us know in the comments below who you want to see me try and argue for. I'm thinking that there might be a pretty big middleweight contest coming up soon that I can argue for, and a certain lightweight title fight that might be an interesting one to dive into as well. But let us know your thoughts. Give us a prediction for this weekend's UFC main event, and we will catch you next time.